Hello everybody and welcome to Amphlett Reviews, back with more Japanese deep dive into some awesome third window collection releases, which they're just absolutely on fire alongside Radiance at the moment, delivering some of the most innovative, controversial, daring, unseen, unheard, undiscovered kind of Japanese titles that I'm just really enjoying right now. Japanese cinema seems to be the boom for me in terms of exploration and just, showing different sides of it, from the Yakuza age, from period drama Yakuza films, samurai films, daring pink films, exploitation films, erotic based kind of movies, thrillers, dramas, a series of different types of box sets of movies and directors and stars that I've just never come across before. And it's just a really great time to get into these types of movies from third window films, absolutely fucking nailing it with their editions recently in terms of individual releases, their box sets. They are just really giving something truly special to this consumer. And Adam over there, whatever you're doing, whatever contacts you're getting in terms of getting these films, getting the rights to these films, is truly fantastic. And I'm truly appreciative as a consumer and a fan of Japanese cinema and exploring more different sides of it. And as you may have guessed, I'm going to be diving in Four Tales of Nami, directed by Takashi Ishii, which is a director that I've heard about for quite some time. He's done quite a variety of different types of films, more known for his kind of pink genres. Has done romantic films, dramas, a bit of thrillers with the Black Angel movies, if I'm not mistaken. With his origin starting as a manga artist, doing very controversial, explicit type of adult theme kind of graphic novels, exploring women, exploring societal kind of issues and pushing the boundaries a little bit there. And then him transition to writing, which there's quite a few releases from Third Window that has just a writing credit only, where he hasn't directed. He has taken these kind of skill sets for his kind of material from his graphic novel, manga kind of origins, and translated into kind of screenplays and kind of, feature films, and then eventually taking his swing at directing with the Angel Guts movies. Now, my initial plan was to do the release order from this director. He's done a load of films from the 70s onwards, and I really wanted to start from the very first kind of film he directed and written, which is one of the Angel Gut movies. Now, as gearing up to talk about this box set for the first time and to kind of explore these movies and to try and start from the very first one, try and track down those older movies and kind of do the release order as he directed them and wrote these films, Adam at Third Window Films has announced the Angel Guts collection coming out on the 23rd of February of next year, 2026, or this year now, depending on when this video gets released, which is very exciting, and actually presenting them in an actual high definition format and Blu-ray with lots of special features. And that features pretty much all the Angel Gut movies he's involved with in terms of these writing credits. He only directed maybe one or two of them, if I'm not mistaken. And these films are post-all them, being set within the 90s. I thought it was a good opportunity to kind of dive into these films first while waiting for that edition to come out. And you never know, there might be some test discs on the way. Now, if you're curious about the edition itself, it's still available in terms of Amazon and HMV. It does feature 4 films, and it's a limited edition set of 2,000 copies, including a booklet, which features Alone in the Night, Angel's Good Red Flash, Original Sin, and A Night in Nude. So 4 films on there, packed full of special features, new interviews, archival stuff, essays, audio commentaries, which is quite interesting. One of the interesting things about this director in terms of his use of the word Nami, which is basically a blank kind of slate kind of character name he uses for every woman he writes, and different actresses, different types of storylines portrayed this kind of sort of pseudonym called Nami throughout his entire filmography in terms of the Angel Gut movies. And even with this box set, which is the Four Tales of Nami, which is basically every main leading woman character he has in all of his films, including the Angel Gut movies, is named Nami. And without jumping ahead too much, there's a really interesting extra on the Angel Guts Red Flash extra, which does dive into basically the many faces of Nami, which is a little 15-minute extra, which talks about the reason why he's used that. He's actually quoted when he was writing these kind of graphic novels and doing these storylines, he didn't understand women, and it's something that he wanted to kind of explore, and he didn't want to create different types of kind of characters necessarily, in terms of, different names and different backgrounds. He wanted to have a central main name in terms of a central name and explore them within different types of scenarios throughout his manga series, throughout his Angel Guts movies, his written material, and even his own movies with this box set as well, which I think is such a fascinating kind of concept in terms of exploring women, different actresses, different portrayals of this idea of the word Nami, a character called Nami, and show their strength, their vulnerability, their resilience, and explore them in very different types of ways depending on the subject matter and the storylines that these films are kind of taking place in, which I think is such a unique kind of concept. I don't think I've seen something quite like that before. And again, very kind of transparent, very open about that fact in terms of the reason why he's done that, because it's something that I couldn't find an answer to in terms of the Google search. You know, I had to find that answer within the extras of this third window release, which I think is another reason why physical media does win yet again. But for today's video, we're talking about original sin release 1992, starring Masataka Nakase, which is a very familiar name, which I recently have done third window reviews for the Michael Harmer collection, the Prairie Detective trilogy, which was absolutely fan-fucking-tastic. Also a 90s trilogy, something that's never been released outside Japan, making its kind of physical media debut outside of that kind of country, and it's never been on Blu-ray before. I think it's just about been on DVD, maybe in different parts of the world, but what a fantastic actor, and just electric in that film, in those series of films actually. And he is one of three characters in this film, which essentially is a stage play, 2-hour romantic drama, intense thriller, very creepy, gets very kind of you know, intense in terms of its subject matter, and having these really kind of extended kind of stage play long takes, which is something that I explored and explained why he does that in terms of his kind of filmography and the cinematography he does, and how he's basically putting the characters and the actors central stage first. He didn't want these actors to break rhythm. He didn't want to, you know, break their kind of immersion and allow kind of, you know, spontaneous kind of, you know, moments by changing the kind of the camera or setting up for a different kind of shot. In a sense, he designed this film in a very specific way to allow the actors to breathe, to create those kind of, there's little moments that basically allow the scene to breathe in a much different way if the shot was cut up into different pieces. There are extended multiple long takes in this film, which I think are really haunting at times, really beautiful, and really allow for the strength, the vulnerability, the dangerous aspects, the emotion to really kind of come out in terms of these performances. And a really smart decision from a practicality point of view, and from a choice that the director has chosen to do in terms of allowing these actors to breathe and are telling this story in a much more organic, much more natural way. And his cinematography is so interesting in this film. His choices in terms of the transitions and having kind of shaky cam kind of moments, having, you know, especially with the opening of the film, there's one when the dock kind of sequence later on in terms of just following them clearly behind them with a shaky cam kind of thing, how he stages kind of certain shots. One of the things I put down in my notes is natural lighting. The film looks very dim. It looks very kind of naturalistic in terms of the kind of the natural lighting that you would find maybe in that location. Maybe it is naturally more cloudier. There's a lot more themes of rain in this one in terms of rainy days, and there's less sun at times, or when the sun is appearing, it is kind of just that kind of, you know, over the cloud type of, you know, natural lighting, which I think really adds to the kind of the feel of the film, the mood of the film. Even the whole, one of the more controversial scenes in the film, which features kind of a storm, and you got kind of rain coming into the actual kind of house. Our main leading actress in this film is played by the wonderful Shodan Watake, which is mostly known for Studio Ghibli voice acting work, according to our IMDb listing, who plays the persona Nami in the film, which is basically a young, in her early 20s kind of housewife, someone who works part-time for her husband's real estate kind of firm, someone who's quite shy, reserved, someone who does all the housekeeping and tolerates her kind of husband's drunken kind of adventures, essentially. And she is someone who's just very timid and just kind of a bit of a people pleaser, you know, and she's trying to, you know, live a very quiet, kind of boring, kind of everyday type of life. And, you know, you find out more about her as the film goes along. It's a 2-hour movie, and initially you would think, you know, this is a storyline which involves Masataka Nakase, which is a drifter, someone comes into town, someone who's been going from place to place, and basically kind of falls in love with her, and it's love at first sight, as he says in the film, which leads up to a very controversial sequence, a very kind of hard-hitting very Japanese in terms of its kind of, subject matter. Basically a full-on rape sequence. He basically throws himself at this woman, this very shy, very timid kind of woman, someone he's made advances to and kind of hinted at, and is very infatuated and obsessed with, to the point where it gets quite dangerous as the film goes along. But he basically throws himself at this woman, and this leads into a kind of a sex sequence. The staging of this is very very fine detail. Again, as mentioned about the kind of the natural lighting, the weather in terms of the lightning, the rain. It feels there's big kind of long takes, very scrappy, kind of rough, not violent necessarily, but just long, uncomfortable sequences that add to the mood of the film, add to the drama, the intensity, the emotional core of what the film's trying to go for. And it's one of these types of films that you just need to have the time, you need to focus on what the film is trying to say by allowing this scene to go on for such a massive stretch. And of course, this leads into, again, I guess, a full-on rape sequence. He bursts into tears after and basically says, "I love you," and it's love at first sight. And he's clearly got some problems, very ADHD, or he's got some trauma that he's dealing through, and he is basically infatuated with himself with this woman. But this problem is the woman is not really necessarily backing away, and this creates the tension of the film and the intrigue of basically who's in the wrong, who's in the right. And it isn't a black and white film. There's no sense of right or wrong. It kind of really is getting into the core of being a human fucking being and making mistakes, having flaws. It doesn't matter what your type of personality is. And I think it's interesting because all three main characters in the film, the three central main characters in terms of the husband as well, are all essentially innocent, more or less. There are obviously more leaning factors that you could explore. I could say I have my opinions, which I won't say too much here in terms of who I think is in the wrong more. But there are some really questionable kind of choices in terms of the characters' motivations. And it's very much a human film. We do suck as people, essentially. We try and do the right thing. Sometimes we don't want to hurt the ones we love, or we do have desires outside of the kind of the norm, not just sexuality or sex as in general, but also just how our emotional connections are, how we want to see, how we want to be seen, how we want to be heard, how we want to be represented. And the first hour of that film is a build up to that racy rape sequence that just happened. It's the breaking point of the film in terms of establishing the three main characters, their day-to-day life, what they do. Husband himself is not a bad person. He's not a violent man. He's someone who just fell in love with a younger woman. And this woman has obviously got some suppression and some hidden desires that she wants to explore. But even her own words in the film, she doesn't know why. She's falling in love with both men, and she doesn't have a clear answer, doesn't have a clear motivation. She's just can't seem to break away from the intrigue or the kind of desire that this kind of drifter has come into, again, a younger man as well. And she allows herself to basically, consensually, after the first initial sequence, to continue having an affair with Masa Nakase's kind of character. And again, it's quite self-destructive. It's not, a clear relationship. It's someone almost like a side kind of thing. And, she's someone who is still very loyal and still very much loves her husband. And this almost sort of like temptation is just there. And the husband in this film is played by Hiro Duramoto, which has been in loads of Japanese films. I probably recognize him from some other projects that I've seen with many of the big established directors. But I think his performance is really fucking good. All three performers in this film is astonishing. It really is an impressive film. And again, this is a romantic drama that turns into a much darker, intense thriller. It definitely has an edge to it. But it's so goddamn interesting. It's so vulnerable. And it's not afraid to admit that, not afraid to go to those places. And none of them are monsters. None of them are necessary villains or heroes. They've all got massive flaws. They've all got hidden desires or kind of secrets, or, even the husband, God, he's just trying to do the best he can. He's not perfect. He's not an abusive person. He's not a nasty person. He's someone who's very much a middle-aged man of his time, someone who likes to go to late-night bars and flirt with women, but he never indulges in that side of it. He indulges in alcohol, comes back a bit drunk, but someone who makes an honest, clean living, loves his wife, and even says in the film, like, you've had an affair twice, and I've caught you having an affair twice now. and I still love you. I don't want a divorce. And, you know, what is it? You know, do you not love me anymore? Do you want to separate from me? You know, and it's a guy bearing his soul to this woman saying, why do you keep doing this to me? You know, and he wants to make a fresh start. He wants to, you know, have a clean slate. He's trying, you know, he's trying to recognize aspects of his wife that he never maybe knew. Someone who is not a bad person, just someone who is very much of their way. It's a bit dangerous. It gets kind of darker as the film goes along. It's quite intense in terms of the drama building up, and to the point where Masataka Nakase's character basically says, I'm going to kill him. I'm just going to straight up kill him, and then basically you and me can be together and you can claim on the insurance money. But it doesn't go in a typical kind of Hollywood way, or it leads into a very brutal, long take sequence. And it's just pure horror in terms of the expressions, in terms of the reactions, and it doesn't go the way it should go. And then it ends on a very kind of sort of open-ended kind of nature. We don't know what the conclusion is necessarily. It's very dreamlike. It almost reminds me of David Lynch a little bit way in terms of the how he wants to approach the conclusion of the film, which I think was quite fascinating. And overall, my thoughts and impressions on Original Sin, I fucking love this film. I thought this was absolutely fantastic, and I thought it was such a bold movie to go out there, and being the fact it took so long to get made, and the extras kind of explore it in terms of a film almost being doomed to never get made. And you can tell there's so much going on behind the camera from the director in terms of how he wants to approach these essential three characters, taking his skill sets from the manga kind of series, applying them to a screenplay, applying them to a movie. It is very challenging. It's a very dark film. Not an easy watch. Definitely something you need to pay attention to, something you need to see those little details to kind of fully understand and appreciate what the film's trying to go for. And I think it's such an anti-fucking Hollywood movie, and I love it. I don't know, this just ticked all the right boxes for me. I thought this was a great introduction to the director, and I'm really hoping the rest of his kind of filmography is just as strong as this first one for me to watch. So what are your thoughts and impressions on Original Sin? Please comment down below. In the meantime, guys, I'm for reviews. Signing out.